Hello, welcome to Keg That's YouTube channel. It's been a while since the last video, and one of the reasons why is because I've been doing quite a few brews on my new Grainfather. Put it through its paces. I've brewed a few different beers on there, including 1 or 2 high gravity beers, and I'm trying to find out whether it's still relevant and still worthwhile getting in 2025. Regular viewers will know that I had a 2-vessel HERMS system, and that was 2 50-litre pots, or larger than 50 litres really, powered by a pump and 2 kettle elements. And the reason why I went for a Grainfather was because I spent a lot of the brew day setting up and washing up, and it also wasn't a very efficient way of brewing because I think those elements, they just took a while to heat up the liquid, and it wasn't really made for the sizes that I was doing. So that system was made for making about 45 litres of wort, whereas I was making between 20 and 25, and even 20 was a bit of a push because it seemed to be a bit too small for that system sometimes. Also, there was a lot of parts to it, which meant that there was a lot of upkeep to it. So I would find every so often a gasket in a tap had broken or something, so I would have to take the whole tap apart, put a new washer in, and then do it back up, and then like make sure it's all waterproof again. And it kind of became a bit of a hassle, and I spent a lot of my time focusing on equipment and not actually brewing. And I went for the Grainfather because I wanted to spend more time on recipe formulation and just actually brewing the beer without too much thought and too much into the actual equipment side of it. And I have to say, it has really allowed me to do that, and brewing is just a lot more fun again. Brewing is actually a bit quicker, so my brew days were maybe 8 hours or so on that 2-vessel HERMS, and now it's more like 6 hours. There's less to clean up, and brewing is just more fun. I can focus on the actual brew and the recipe formulation and not have to worry about whether there's a leaky tap somewhere or one part isn't working properly or that sort of thing. So the way the Grainfather works is it's pretty much a brew in a bag system, but instead of having a nylon bag, it's got a malt pipe, which is made of stainless steel, and you do the mash in that malt pipe, which sits in the kettle, and then at the end of the mash you pull it up and all the wort drains down into the kettle. You then sparge over the grain, and then you boil that wort for the final boil, and then cool the wort down using the chiller that comes with it into the fermenter. So it's a pretty compact system, and of course I'm talking here about the G30 version 3. I actually used to have, I guess canonically it's now referred to as the G30 version 2, but when it came out, I think it was just a Grainfather Connect. And there is a bit of difference between the two. So I have long since got rid of the version 2, and there are some minor improvements on the V3 compared to the V2. So the V2, for the malt pipe, you needed to put on a top plate and like this sort of overflow thing in the middle, and when you were sort of fixing it all together and putting it in place, you would have these, like for the false bottom and the top plate, they would both come with these silicone seals you would have to put on each time, and it would be a bit annoying just because putting it into the malt pipe meant that it would come off quite easily. And on the V3, they've kind of got away with all of that. It's just like a couple of quality of life fixes where it's now just as simple as fill it with water, start heating the water, and put in the malt pipe, and then put in the false bottom, and it all just slots into place, and there's no need to worry about getting silicone edges to fit. It also has a pump which recirculates the wort during the mash, and that means that the wort is going to be a bit clearer, and you also use that pump to basically get the wort from the kettle through the heat exchange and then into the fermenter. So the Grainfather is controlled by this box, which has Bluetooth on it. You can run it directly off the box using the controls on there to set the mash temperature and the mash timings, etc. Or you can use the Grainfather community tools, where you can input your recipe, and with that you can then connect via Bluetooth from your phone or your tablet to this control box, and then it will just automate all the timings for you. The app itself is pretty good. I have noticed there are a couple of bugs in it where it does crash if you keep leaving the room and coming back. Also, the Bluetooth connectivity is only on mobile and tablet. what would be really good is to have one for desktop as well, because my setup is I brew next to my computer. My computer doesn't go anywhere, it's a desktop. So if I could connect to Bluetooth from my computer to the control box, then that would be great, because I connect with my phone, but during brew day, I'm not within Bluetooth range of the control box for the whole day, so it sort of disconnects, then connects, and disconnects, then connects. And whilst it does automatically reconnect to your phone, I think this is where the crashing comes in. However, what you can also do is you can connect via Bluetooth, and once you have clicked brew on your recipe, the recipe gets stored in the box. So even if you turn your phone off or your phone explodes or whatever, the recipe will still carry on brewing, because all the instructions are now in the box as opposed to just on your phone. I have to say, it does what it does really, really well. So out the box, just using it without doing any kind of hacks or anything like that, I'm getting about 80% efficiency. I've mostly been making average strength beers, so between 4, 5, maybe 1 or 2, just pushing the 6% mark, and they've all been about 23 litres. I've not tried making less beer in it, and I've also not tried to push it, but I could comfortably make 25 litres, it's just my kegs are 18 litres. So my last brew, I did try and make an imperial stout, which was about 8 kilos of malt into about 24 litres of water, and that was really pushing it. I think I'll be really hard pressed to do a bigger beer than this, but if you want to make high gravity beers, and this is the thing that you want to do often, there are ways around it, such as doing smaller batches. So as I say, this is 23 litres. I could also do this for 19 litres and then have a bit more headroom in there. You can also do reiterated mashes, which is where you mash half the grain bill at a time. Does take a bit longer, of course. There are ways to increase efficiency as well. If you'd like to see a video on Grainfather hacks that I've started doing, just let me know in the comments and I can make a video on how to get even more out of the old Grainfather and how to use it properly. What I really, really like about this system is the simplicity, really. It just makes work really well. It kind of does what it's supposed to without any fuss, without any issues, and it's a joy to use. I think even with the high gravity beers, it still works. It still does what it's supposed to. The big question though is the beer actually better from the Grainfather versus from my 2-vessel HERMS? And I kind of think it is. I think because the brew day is easier, it means I can spend more time and energy focusing on it, whereas there may have been a couple of times with my 2-vessel HERMS where I was just kind of tired. I wanted the brew day to be over, so I would kind of try and cut corners, and of course you should never cut corners because that's when things go wrong, whereas I don't do that anymore. I look forward to brewing and I see each process through, so I'm having less beers going bad. I also think that the clarity of the beer is better. I've got a bit more control on that. And as I know I've said this before, it's just more fun. I've just got back to what I love about brewing, which is making beer. There are a couple of issues that I would like to point out though, which is mostly to do with the sparge heater. So this isn't necessarily to do with the Grainfather, and the thing with the sparge heater is that it's got this tap on it, which is connected to the sight glass, and you can't really remove the tap without removing the sight glass. The reason why this is an issue is because the tap is either on or off. It's not like a ball valve or something, which means that you have to do the sparge manually. Now, it's really not the end of the world. I stood there for a while pouring water over the grains. Does mean you get a bit more involved. However, if you wanted it to be more automated, it would be really good to have a tap that you could control the flow of and leave it on a small flow with a pipe running from the tap that goes over the grain basket to sparge. It's just not possible unless you want to cut a hole in the actual sparge heater, and there's no point for me to do that because I'm then going back into the territory of making my own system and then things going wrong and seals breaking and all that sort of thing. And so I think I just stand there pouring over. As I say, it's not the end of the world, but it'll be really good on this sparge heater if in future versions they actually change the tap to a ball valve. So I've noticed that the filters work really well. There is a filter that sits on the outlet, and I've always been a bit concerned about it, but it actually works very well. Like, I'm not getting any hot matter, I'm not getting any grain bits into the fermenter. It's usually just clear wort. So another thing that's a bit awkward is during the sparge, to get 23 litres of wort in the fermenter, I generally need to collect about 28 litres in the kettle after the sparge. And I think one of the awkward things is that there's no easy way to see how much wort you've already collected. There are litre gradients and there's also gallons gradient on the inside, so you can see, but when you've got a basket on top of the kettle, it can be a bit tricky to see how much you've got. Not really the end of the world. Can shine a torch in there and it makes it a lot easier. Also, if that is very important to you, you can upgrade to the G30, which I believe does have a clear sight glass that runs on the side. So during the sparge, you can see very easily how much wort you have collected. So overall, I've been loving it. As you can probably tell, it's a great system and I'm really glad I've got one back, and they've made some really good improvements. There are a couple of issues, but this is in no way a game changer or would stop me using it at all. I mean, I don't think you're going to find a perfect system anywhere, and it would be really interesting to hear your thoughts, if you've got Grainfather, to hear if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And also, if you use any other kind of single vessel HERMS like this, something different to a Grainfather, then please comment below as well what you think, and if you've used a Grainfather as well, and like how they compare. And yeah, also, if you want to know more about that imperial stout that I'm making, do leave a comment below. I can make a video about imperial stouts. So this one is, the original gravity is 1089, and I'm doing a Kvike ferment with that, and I'm going to add oak chips soaked in whiskey to give it that sort of barrel aged effect. And if that's of interest to you, do leave a comment below, and like, I can do a video on imperial stouts, as they're pretty fun to do. But thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, do like and also subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and you want to see more Grainfather videos, you want to see more about homebrewing. Thank you.